Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Data Analytics with Career Guidance course. So today we are in day 2 of SQL Server class. Today in our topic, so we'll be learning about how we can create a database, how we can create tables. Also, we'll learn about the data types in SQL Server. So I have some slides wherein I have some syntax. I've explained few things about what is database, what is table, and what are the different type of data types we have in SQL Server. So first, let's understand what is a database. A database is an organized collection of data that is structured into tables, rows, columns, and index. The database is an object, okay? So it will have the tables, the stored procedure. There are so many objects which it will actually hold, wherein we actually store the data. So when we say store the data, we should have some tables where we'll be storing our data in that particular database. So database can contain so many various different objects. It actually helps us to find relevant information frequently. Whenever we want some information so frequently, we can use this database. It enables the user to access, manage the records through the database very easily. Usually, each database in SQL Server stores all the files in the form of tables. So there will be so many different objects which it will actually store in the form of tables. Why database is needed, we'll just understand. Most companies and organizations need a database because it maintains all its relevant information such as employee records, transactional records, salary information. In general, if you want to store some data, we need some tables, and these tables are actually available in database. And database, why it is actually important? Because we need to know our historical data, and also we have a lot of information about the entire. Let's say there is a company, there's a lot of data. If you want to understand that company's details or the production, what they're doing, or whatever in that company is happening, if you want to know, database actually helps us a lot for getting the information. Okay, the following are the popular reasons for the need of database. I've just pointed out few things. Manage large amount of data, then you'll have accurate data. It is very easy to update, and the data is secured, data integrity, and also for researching of the data, that is for analyzing of the data. Okay, so here I've given the explanation of it, so you can go through that. Let's not go into more of theory. Let's go and understand how actually we can create the database. Okay, so this slide, whatever is there, this PPT, whatever is there, I will put it in the app. So go through this, use this for your references. Okay, all right. Now we'll create the database. How to create database? We can create in two different ways. One is TSQL, other one is by using SSMS. So what is TSQL? It is nothing but it's a command actually. So I can write some commands and then create the database, or I can use SQL Server Management Studio. I'll show you in both the ways how we can actually create the database. Okay. So here I have given the syntax. So where we can create the database by using TSQL. Okay. So TSQL means transact SQL command. That is, we're writing some command in Management Studio, wherein we have there also two types. That is, one is we can create by using command or by using the GUI. Okay. All right. So this is by SSMS, and you can drop, that is delete the database, and also you can alter the database. So all these commands are given here. Okay. So let me just minimize this and let's open. Okay, see, this is my SSMS Management Studio. Also, I have a notepad for you people. I've prepared one notepad where you can just copy and paste. What I've done is I've put all the syntax here. So all the queries will be adding like this. So I have some notepad like this. So we can use these syntax. I've kept all the syntax in notepad. I'll be sharing this as well. So you can utilize that. Right. So how will the SSMS get connected? So here, once I open this management studio, you can see that there is one window it's coming. So you'll have the server name and then you can connect. For the people who work in companies, for them, they'll have a different, you know, authentications or say server name, which the admins will actually provide. Okay. So you can plan accordingly. You can ask your admin and you can get your server name, get it installed. Right? I'll say connect. When I say connect, the SQL server is actually connected now. Now here we need to create the database. So you can see here we have this database. There are so many things here. Okay, in this we'll be concentrating only on this database, not the any other things, because we want only to work on the data part. Now when I click on this plus mark, here you can see it'll get expanded. Now here we have so many database which I have already created. So we can create our own database. If you go to this notepad, people, whenever we open the notepad, sometimes you'll get this, black screen or gray screen. If you find anything like that, please let me know. I'll stop it and I'll share it again. Okay. If at all there is some black screen, please message me. I will close the sharing and again I'll open. All right. Now, to create the database, we have two different ways. One is TSQL, other one is GUI. Now, if you want to create this by GUI, it is very easy. How? Right click, and here I have this new database. Okay, it's very easy. Just click on this database. Don't click on anywhere. So suppose if you go here, see here also we can do, but don't click anywhere like this. Okay. So what you do, just select this main of the folder, right click and say new database. When I click on this new database, it asks for the database name. Okay. Now I'll just give the name as say DB. Have the habit of having this prefix. It's a good practice actually. I made it as DB. That means it is database underscore. We can give any name. Let's say data analytics. Make it as July 2023. Okay. I just named my database as DB underscore DA underscore July 2023. I will say OK. When I click on OK, see, a new database is created. Now, suppose if you want to delete this, right click and say delete. Gone. That's all. So this is very easy. So what I did now, I just right click, created a database and then deleted it. But the same thing, if you want to do with the commands, okay, usually we prefer writing, the commands, because most of the people actually feel that SQL means it's a language where we try to write the commands. Few times, a few things we can create by GUI only. Sometimes we have to use this commands as well. So I prefer always the SQL, you learn it by commands. So wherever you feel that it is GUI, so please use that. But wherever you feel that you want to use this commands, so please use commands. All right. Now, how to create database by using commands? Let's go here. Here we have something called as new query. We can use the shortcut key Control N as well, or we can click on this new query. When I say Control N, we'll get one query window here. See, this is a query window where we can write the queries. Let me type create database. Same name I'll give DB underscore DA underscore July 20. Right now, I will select this and then I'll execute it. The shortcut key is F5 for execute. Execute means you are running the code what you have written. Now, I selected and then I'm clicking here. Why we should select, I'll tell you. See, if you're working on MS Access, there are windows. For one window, I can write only one query. But in SQL Server, we can write multiple queries in the same window. Multiple codes we can write in the same window. So always, whatever we have selected, only that will be executed. Now here I have only one query, so I don't have to select. Suppose if I write one more query, then it's a good practice of selecting and then executing. So whenever you are actually trying to execute any code, please select this and then click on this execute. Let me click on this execute. You should get this result, commands completed successfully. Now when it is done, I should get the database here. Let's go and see if it is there. It is not there. Why? Because whenever I write, some commands, and if you're actually creating some objects, make sure that you will go here and click on this refresh. When I click on this refresh and then expand again, do we have this? See, we got this. So whenever you are actually creating any objects, I'm telling, make sure that you are clicking on this refresh. But when you're actually using this GUI, automatically it is getting refreshed, so you don't have to bother about it. Okay, all right. Next, suppose if you want to alter, usually alter means what? Modifying it. Select this, right click, you can say rename. Okay, see, rename. So this is renaming your object name, that is the database name. Otherwise, we can say alter database, modify, and you can give the new name. Now let me go here. I'll say alter database. What is the database name? I will just copy this instead of typing again. Okay. Otherwise also, let's say db underscore ga. So type. Then we'll say modify. So what is that? Modify. I'll give the name as the new name. The syntax is here. You can use this. Modify name equals. I'll give the new name. Just mention it. Underscore. Let me select this. And then let me execute. The database name, whatever name you have specified, has been set. Now click on this refresh. Let me minimize this, refresh, and then go and check here. See, the database has been renamed. Suppose I want to delete. For delete, we have the command drop. For deleting, it is very easy. Just say drop database. Now we should give this name, not this name. Okay. Drop database, and I'll use the database name. Let me select this and then execute. Command completed successfully. Now, if I go here and say refresh, you just observe the database doesn't exist. Now, if I go select this and if I execute this again, you see what happens. See, I'm getting this error. It is saying cannot drop the database because it does not exist or you do not have permission. This database does not exist. So for this, what we'll do is, see, instead of getting this error, we can use this if exists. And keep in mind, this drop, whatever we are using for any objects, drop, and we'll give the object name here. So it can be database, it can be procedure, it can be table, anything. Just go here and mention the object name. Now here, I'll say if exists. So what does if exist mean? If exist means if this object exists, then only delete, otherwise don't delete. I mean, otherwise just ignore the command. See? So this database is not there. So it is trying to ignore the command. Otherwise, we'll get the error. I'll go to this create database. Again, I'll execute this. I got the database created. Let me go here and check. See, I have this database created. Now, what if I run this code again? Let me execute this. See, it'll throw error. It is saying that database already exists. Choose a different name. Any objects. Let it be a database name, a table name, any names. It should be unique. When I say unique, that means you cannot have duplicate names. So whatever I've created here, whatever database I'll be creating, I should have a unique name for any objects I create. So you cannot create a duplicate names. Why? Because when I'm actually selecting some data from a particular object, say, for example, now in this database, so this database is unique. So no other database should be available here with the same name. Alter again. So I'll go here. I have this database created. I'll say execute. You can see that the database has been named. Now let me select this, and if I run this again, it will not run. The reason is there is no database called as db_da_ July 2023. Why? Because I have renamed it. Now suppose if I go here and if I run this, see, it is saying successful, but this DB is not deleted at all because we have the DB name as this one with _new. We don't have this database name. Now let me refresh it. And if I go here and check, see, we have this database, but this database is not available. So likewise, we can work on the database. So here there is nothing much to create in the database. Otherwise, we have some permissions and things like that. I told we are not working on the admin part. So we are just concentrating only on how to create the objects. This is how we can actually create the object. Now what I'll do, I will just keep this. If you want, I'll just copy this and put this in the notepad as well, so that we'll have the same queries what we have used in the class. Those queries only you try to say create, keep it as database. Okay, so I'll give this notepad also to you so that you people can use it for practicing. All right. So we learned about how to create, alter, and drop the database. Let me delete this. Go here. Let me rename this. So now onwards, we'll be using this as my database. So whatever file, whatever the tables I'm creating, everything let it be in this particular database only. Okay, so this is my database now. So I'll be using only this database. So here only we'll be creating all the object what we're trying to create, that is tables, views, or stored procedures. We'll keep it here only. Right? So the next one, what we have is how to work on tables. But before going to the tables, let's understand what is this table. This is very important because database anyways already it will be available. So we don't have to bother too much about the database creating, and that is very easy as well. But a thing what we have to concentrate more is about the tables, because this is what is used. This is what we are actually, building for the projects or collecting the data or something. Okay, so depending on my project, I have to decide how my table should be. I have to decide what are the columns should be created. Okay, so what is a table? Let's understand. Tables are database objects that contain all the data in the database. So any data, whatever we are collecting, okay, that will be available in a table. The table is logically organized in row column format, similar to spreadsheet. That means in Excel, what we have, the rows and columns, similar to that, we have this formats in, the SQL. Technically, the rows and columns are called as records and field. Okay. Each row represents a unique record and each column represents a field in the record. That means we have, let's say, information about employees will have 10 different columns. So each columns are called as fields. So it can be employee name, employee ID, and all these are actually called as fields. The entire information what you collect, say I have 10 columns, I'm collecting all the details for those 10 columns, that is called as a record, and each record should be unique. 3 items are needed for table creation. One is name of the table, name of the field, and definitions for each field. So what is definition? Definition is nothing but I'm creating a field, what kind of data type it is. Say for example, I create employee name, it is a text field. I create employee age, that is a number field. I create a date of birth for employee, then that is date field. So likewise, we have various different data types that I'll tell you the next, after this topic, next topic. So these are 3 different things what actually we should know in the table. Apart from this, there is also something called as constraints that we'll learn in the coming sessions. Table limits. The number of tables in the database is limited only by the number of objects allowed in the database. So there are these many number of tables what we can actually create, but it's a huge thing. So we don't have to bother. I don't think we'll be creating such big, number of tables. The standard user-defined table can have up to 1024 columns. These are all some limitations actually. The number of rows in the table is limited only by the storage capacity of the server. So we don't have to bother about the number of records actually. So it depends on it all depends on the storage capacity. So you have so many server space, so much of server space. So depending on the server space, we can actually store the data. So here there is no limits for the rows. So we have the limits for the columns and the database. Okay. Right. Next, creating the table. So if you want to create table, there is a syntax, a very simple syntax, I'll tell you. Many people, many of them actually find it very difficult, or say, they find creating table very complex. Creating table is very, very easy actually. I will tell you how actually you can create table in a very simple, easy manner. Okay, the syntax is just simple. Create table. If you want to mention your database name, you can mention the database name. If you are creating the data, if you're creating the table in, somewhere you have enabled your database. And if you want to create with specific database, you can specify the database and then the name. But the syntax is create table, then table name, and all the columns with the definitions, that is the data types. If at all I have some constraints, I'll tell you what is constraint. Constraint is nothing but we'll be giving some, rules on particular columns, that is primary key, foreign key, and things like that, that I'll tell you when you come to this joins. All right. Select the desired database in which you want to create a table and expand it. Okay. It will display the submenu such as database diagrams. So I'll tell you how to create this. This is actually by creating the SSMS mode, that is GUI mode. Let me show you. We'll go to this database management system. Okay. Now, if you want to create table, see, I have these tables. Select here. So this is the object where I'll be creating the table. If you go and select this, we don't have any tables created. I'll say right click and say new, and here I have this table. I'll click on this table. When I click on this table, it will give me one window like this. So if you've already worked on MS Access, you'll come to know how to create the table here. But if you're not worked also, don't worry. See here, I have this column names. Let's say I want to create one simple employee table. Okay. So here I'll say EMP underscore ID. It lasts for the data type. So what is data type? So just keep in mind the data types are nothing but the type of information what we're actually collecting in that particular table. Now here I'm saying employee ID. Employee ID will be combination of numbers and text. Some people actually, in some companies, they'll have only numbers, but most of the companies will have text as well as numbers. So here I have various different data types here. In this, usually, depending on the requirement, we actually have to specify the data type. Now here I have this nchar, that is the characters. Suppose if you think that I'm actually storing some characters, I'll go here and I'll specify the characters. Here I have this 10. 10 is nothing but the number of characters. If at all I feel that the employee ID will not go beyond 10 characters, please mention here 10 characters. Suppose if you think it is 100 characters, I can mention here 100 characters. But thinking that employee ID will be 10 characters, I'm specifying this as 10 characters. Employee name. Okay. Now the employee name might go beyond, we cannot guess how many characters. I'll just keep it as 100 characters. Next, say employee age. Now let's go here. Here, there are so many data types. So which data type I should take? Here we have something called as integer. Okay, so what is integer? Integer is nothing but the whole numbers. So here I'll specify the data type for this particular employee age as integer. Then let's say employee date of birth. So here I'll go. We have a data type called as date. Let me go here and select this date. So likewise, specifically, you can go and assign the definition, that is, what is the data type. So I've given a detailed information about the data type, what are the data types are available and which data type to use, that I'll discuss after this. But this is how actually we can create the table. That's all. My tables are done. The columns, the fields I've given, the table is done. Now what I'll do, I will close this. And one more thing here, I have this allow nulls. So allow nulls means here, it will allow me to enter null values. That means blank. You can keep it blank. Let me remove this checkbox. You can see that now I cannot leave this employee ID blank. It has to, have at least some simple values. So some value should be there. Now this is called as constraint. And that means I'm allowing a rule. I'm actually applying a rule on this particular fields. That is whether it should be null value or it can allow null value. So I'm applying a rule saying that employee ID. Okay, this employee ID cannot be null. Now let me close this. When I close this, it will ask for whether I need to save. Save changes to the following items. I'll say yes. When I click on S, it will ask for the table name. By default, it will give me table underscore and the serial numbers. So here, what I'll do is I'll say TBL. Now again, what is this TBL? This is nothing but the prefix for this object. I am using this as TBL. So what happens, I'll tell you. Some people, they just save the table name as this. But it's a good practice to use this object names, not only in SQL, even if you are using this program, even if you're writing some program or, in Excel, you're creating some dashboards, name the objects. The name what you're giving to the objects actually represents, what objects actually we are working on. Okay. TBL underscore, let's say EMP details. Now I'll say OK. See, when I click on OK, the table is created. Now what I'll do, I'll go here, I'll say refresh. When I refresh, and if I go to our database, this is my database. Now if I click on this table, you can see the table is created here. You can see the object. There is a box kind of thing here which shows the table format. All right. Now when I click on this plus mark, you can see I have the columns. You can see those 4 columns and you can see all the information about, say, employee ID. Okay. The data type not null. The next employee name, we can have null values. Employee age, the data type and null values. Employee date of birth, date, null values. So this is my table and these are the fields inside that table. All right. So what we did, this is creating the table, creating the object by GUI. Similarly, suppose if you think I want to create the table by using commands, I'll show you how easily you can actually create. Okay. Here. I'll tell you what I'm doing. So what I did is, sometimes what happens, Some of the other database will be activated. Say, for example, now if I'm in this particular database, I have multiple database, so we have to use something like this. I'll tell you what it is. Otherwise, if you have only one database, you don't have to bother about this code. If at all I have, there are so many database here. So if at all I'm, working on multiple database and I've created some database like this, if the um, SQL server is active with any of these database, then when we create a table using command, that will go to the database which is enabled. So to avoid that, or say to enable, any of the database, so what I'll do is I'll say use which database, use database, and I'll say go. When I use this, what happens? Whatever database I'm specifying, that will be enabled. Now this is active. Now, whatever the objects I create, that will be in this particular database. Okay. So if it is only one database, there is no problem. And sometimes this will be activated, so you don't have to bother. But I have the habit, what I'll do is first I'll run this code so that the, the database is activated, right? Okay. If you want, I'll just put this code also here. I'll put it here. This. I'll mention activate database. Yeah. All right. So I will save this. All right. Now let's create the table by using command. Okay. Create table. Like what we have this create database, like that, we have this create table. I'll say create table, table name. I'll give the table name as TBL underscore, and I'll say EMP details 01. I'm just giving a unique name now because already we have one table with employee details. Now I'm mentioning it as 01. Okay. I'll say enter. You just see after this, I'll say enter. What I'll do is I'll take one bracket, open bracket, close bracket. I'll give this in the beginning only so that I'll not miss these brackets. I'll give enter and I'll give one tab. Why? Because now this is the syntax, that is create table, table name. I have the bracket, open bracket, close bracket. Here I'll be writing command. Here I'll be mentioning all the column names, what I actually create. Okay. Now you see employee ID, comma, employee underscore name, comma, employee age, comma, employee underscore date of birth, comma, employee mobile, employee say email, employee address, employee salary. Okay. All right. So what I did, I mentioned all the column names here. So these are actually I create because I'll not miss anything. Now, what I did, I mentioned all the column names here. And you can see I have mentioned all the comma separator here. And I've taken some people, what they do, they'll put everything in the same line like this. That also will work, but don't have that habit. Have this practice, say employee ID, employee name. So I mentioned all the field names, whatever I'm trying to have in that particular table. So employee ID, employee name, age, date of birth, mobile, email address, salary, all these are field names. And you can see that all these are actually separated by comma separators. And the last column, what you see, that will not have the comma separators. Right? Done. So first I'll mention all the field names, whatever is required for my table. Then what I'll do, I'll go and I'll decide what is the data type. Some people actually directly they go and say employee ID, and where care. So everything, whatever data types are there, they'll just mention. That is also fine. But why I actually do this is so that I'll not miss any of the field names. I'll just copy and paste. Usually what I'll do, I'll make the list, I'll show you one more way. Usually what I do is I'll take this Excel Okay. And I'll make the list of all the field names here. I'm just telling you the different techniques I actually use. Okay. So here, when we actually try to create the database, usually what we do is we'll make a list of things in Excel like this. Okay. So this is also another way. I'm not telling these are all tricks. So you can keep this as tips. Okay. I'll copy this and then I'll paste it here. I'm just telling you what I actually do. See? So what happens? We are not missing any of the field names. So I don't have to type also. What happens when actually planning for the database? Either we'll actually put that in the notepad or in some Word file, PowerPoint or Excel. Usually what I do is I'll take Excel and I'll make a list of all the field names like this, say table name and the field name, table name. Whatever tables I'm creating, I'll be mentioning the table name and the field name. So I just copy this and I'll paste it here. After that, I'll give the comma like this. And the last column will not give. Then after this, what should we do? I'll go here and I'll mention the data type. Employee ID, say, and where, say. We can use this or we can use. Okay, right. Same thing. I'm just checking what I've used here. Same thing I'll use here also. I'll copy this and here I'll mention. Okay, all right. So age is INT. Then date of birth is date. And then mobile, I'll say, can make it as email and can make it as 100. Address, I'll take the same thing. And salary, we can keep it as float is nothing but the decimal number. So let's say I'm just trying to show you various different data types here. If you want, you can keep it as integer only, or you can keep it as float. Now, all my data types are done. Now, suppose if you want to give some constraints, okay, say for example, now I want to give this as primary key or foreign key or something that we can actually mention here. That I'll tell you when you come to this, you know, say joins. Okay, there I'll tell you how actually we can use this primary key, what is foreign key, that we'll see. But for today, we'll just see the basic idea about how to create the tables. Now you can see that I mentioned all this. So this will be very easy. Now after this, suppose if you think that you want to make it primary key, say primary key like this. All right. So whatever you want to give, you can keep giving that in this particular row itself. So why I tell you this technique is you'll not miss anything here. Say null. Here the null values, you can allow null. I'll say not null. See, here this will not allow null values. So all these you can mention here one by one. So by this, what happens? You're not missing anything. Some people have the habit of, employee ID, then give the data type, then give all the constraints, and they might forget to give the comma itself. Then again, there'll be error. Then again, they'll go back, they'll start correcting it. So instead of this technique actually I use, so that will not forget any of the required informations to be given here. Now let me select this and I will execute this. When I execute this, see it says command completed successfully. Now let's go and refresh. And I'll go here and see in this particular database. See, I have this table. Now let me click on this. You can see the columns. You can see all the columns with their data types. Don't worry, I'll explain about these data types, what these data types are. That's a separate topic actually. I'll explain about that. Okay, see all the data types here. It says null values. All right. So this is creating the table. Suppose if you want to alter. Now, what is alter? Let me tell you. For that, also I have one notepad. Okay, I've given all the syntax here. So we can use this. See, this is what I was telling about the primary key, not null, and things like that. So don't worry. We'll work on this as well. I'll explain this as well. But when you come to the topic, that is the separate chapter on that. When you come to that, I'll tell you. Today we'll just learn about in a simple way how we can create table. Okay, right. Alter table. Alter means what? Modifying. Now, for example, I'll go here in this table. I want to add one more column. Let's say I want to add state. Okay, I forgot to add state here. I want to add state. Now, one way is I can delete the entire table and then create the entire table again by mentioning all these commands, including one more column. Instead, if you want to modify the existing table itself, then I'll be using this alter. So what are things we can do in alter? Say alter, we can add columns, right? Alter, already there is a column. I can modify the data type. I have a table. I want to drop a column. That is, I want to delete a column. That I can do. I can rename the table itself. For that, we can just right click and we can rename it. So there are various different alter, things, whatever we can do. So I've just mentioned everything here. You can go through this. I'll just tell you one or two so that, you can use the same syntax here and then you can use it, because I cannot teach every single thing here. That will take a lot of time, but I'll be giving you this notepad so that you can work on that. But let me tell you, what if I want to add a column? I'll say alter table and I'll mention table name. So let's go to this SQL. So I will copy this table. Okay, this here. This notepad, I'll give it to you. You can use this. All right. Now I want to alter this table. I'll say alter table. What is the table name? This. Put it. Alter table, table name. Give this. Now you have to decide what should I do. The requirement is adding a column. So when I say adding a column, then I'll be using this syntax. Alter table, table name, add column with column definition. What is that? I want to add one column or multiple columns. You can keep adding something like this as well. Now I want to add, let's say, city and state both. Okay. So here I'll say add EMP city, and then I'll say and can, let's say 100. Then again EMP state and can, say, see, I'm trying to add two different columns for this particular table. Now let me select this and I'll say execute. Commands completed successfully. I'll go here and say, where is that refresh? Sorry. The refresh, go back to this database, go back to this table, and then select this table which we modified now. See, city and state has been added. Now suppose if you want to change the data type, then again, same thing. Alter table, table name, then I'll say alter column. Let's go here. I will say alter table, and I'll take this table name. Next, alter, and let's take, okay, this employee email. Okay, here, okay, I'll make it as, okay, Right. Let me select this and then execute. Sorry, I didn't mention the object name. Sorry. So alter column, the column name, the data type. I'll go here. I'll say execute. Now let me refresh this. And then I'll go here. If you see here, tables, see columns. The email was nchar, now it is varchar. So likewise, we can modify. There are so many various different where we can actually try to modify. Say, if you want to delete, I'll say drop column and mention the column name. The column is deleted. Okay, so likewise, I mentioned various different ways of altering, modifying the structure of the table. That is, you can go and you can check this. Deleting. Deleting is very easy. You just have to mention drop, like what we use this drop table name. A drop database name. Similarly, I'll use this drop, say drop table, and I'll select this table name. Let me select this and I'll execute this. When I say execute, see what happens. The table is gone. If you want, you can use if exists here. And now I'll select this and I'll say execute. See, even though the table is not there, it is saying successful because I mentioned it as if exists. So if exists, it will check. If it is existing, it will delete. Otherwise, it will just ignore the command. So this is how actually we can create the table, alter the table, and delete the table. Now, we saw this by using this GUI, and also we saw this how to write a command for creating the table, altering the table, and also dropping the table. But while creating the table, we saw some data types, that is nchar, varchar, date, integer. So what I've done is to make it more easy to understand, I've kept some slides here to make you understand all the data types available in SQL Server. But first, let's understand what is this data type. Data type, I'll tell you in a simple thing. Data type means it is the type of data what we're actually storing. I'm creating one field. I want the field to have a particular kind of data to be stored. If I say employee name, that should have text. If I say employee age, that should have the numbers. Okay. Likewise, the data type ensures which type of data the field or variable can store in the SQL Server. When we create any table or variable means like, in stored procedure, we have something called as variable where we store the information. Okay. It is required to specify the type of data it will store in addition to the name of each column. That means I'm giving the column name. In addition to that, we have to mention what kind of data we are actually storing in that particular field. For example, each table has many columns and contains specific data. Okay. In that, the data types of each column will be differing. That is, it will have integer, float, varchar, boolean, all this. What are this? I have that mentioned in some of the slides here. How to use data type? We require to specify the data type in advance for each column of the table to ensure which type of data it can store. That means we have to mention what we did while creating the table. We mentioned the field name and the data type. So we have to mention in the beginning only, so that when I enter some data, when I'm trying to insert some data to the table, so it is easy for us to, it's a good practice that a particular data is stored in the particular columns. Okay. The data type specification also prevents the user from entering any unexpected or invalid information. So why do we have to specify the particular data type? So that the user will not enter invalid data. So what happens? Imagine that I'm entering a data. In age, I'm entering name. So that is invalid data. So while creating the reports, while analyzing the data, it will become very difficult for us if you have invalid data in the fields. Okay. All right. When we assign the appropriate data type to a column, we can make efficient use of memory by allocating only the amount of system memory required for the data in the relevant column. We can see that while using this employee ID. Okay, so here, while creating this employee ID, I mentioned only 10. That means instead of wasting a lot of space, so here it will allow us to enter only 10 characters, not more than that. So we can specify that so that the user will not enter, you know, um, irrelevant data, or say, just entering whatever he wants. So that there we can save a lot of space in the memory. Okay. Why should we use data type? The type of values, whatever we have the fields, so it will represent whether it is a number, text, date, boolean, whatever data type. The storage space depends on the values which we actually enter, that is whether it's a fixed length or variable length. Okay, now just keep this fixed or variable, then you'll understand what is nchar and varchar. Okay, its storage value can be indexed or not. How SQL Server performs a comparison of values for a particular data type. So what happens when you're actually utilizing the memory space, when you're actually specifying the number of characters what I require, okay, if you're specifying, then it will become more efficient for us to work on the projects what we actually work, because unnecessary data is entered, unnecessarily the space is actually used. So we are actually wasting a lot of memory space. So to avoid that, we can use this data types. Okay. So what are the different type of data types we have? We have, say, just classify like this: number, date, and text. So in that we have various different data types depending on the programming language what we actually use. Say in SQL Server, we have this exact number, approximate number, date and time, characters. We also call it as string or text. Okay, Unicode characters, binary strings, and there are more other data types, right? So here I've mentioned, in detail about all these things. You can just go through that, but I'll go here and I'll tell you about what exactly these data types mean. Okay, exact number data type. So here we have this bit. Also, I mentioned how much of the storage capacity it will take. So here we have this bit, tiny bit, small int, tiny int actually. So integer. So we use this integer. So if you want to use decimal, we have this decimal. Then we have this, more other data types here. Don't worry, just use this int. That is more than enough for us. Otherwise, also, suppose if you think you want to use some smaller numbers, you can use this bit. Okay, but usually we directly go for this int. Okay, all right. Let's go here. Then we have this approximate float. Float is, again, I told you, it's a decimal number. Okay, so it depends on the decimal numbers. We can actually use this float. The float, we can specify that it is a floating values. Floating values means it is decimal numbers. So date and time, we have this date data type. We use this date data type. Sometimes if you want to store your time, then you can use this time as well. So usually we use this date and time. Okay, there are more others. I just gave in detail about all these things. Use this date and time. The next character, that is we have fixed or variable characters. Say char, it is used for storing fixed length. Okay, so it can store up to 8,000 characters. Varchar, it is actually variable. So what is variable? I'll tell you. What happens is when I mention this variable, so I can keep changing the number of characters. That is actually the varchar and nchar. So when I say nchar, that means the number of characters. The number of characters means it is fixed. Say if you want to store 10, it is only 10. So varchar means we can actually have, so we can vary. Sometimes we don't know how many characters has to be used. Usually for name, we use this varchar. Just for showing the example there, in the table, I used nchar. So varchar actually is like, it will be keep, it's a variable actually. It's a variable character. Nchar, it is number of characters. Varchar, it is variable characters. Okay, otherwise we can give text. Depending on my requirement, I can use these data types. Okay, right. So we have few other data types which are mentioned here, so which we might not be using much. Suppose if you think you want to store some images, we can use this image. So all these are binary data types. These again, it's too advanced actually. So these are all some data types which the higher end, when we use this for developments, we can use this, right? These are the say the data types. Okay. So first, keep in mind data types are actually used for specifying what the column, the field actually stores the data. Okay. So this is what we have for today. So we learned about how to create database. Then we learned about the tables and the data types. But I'll tell you people, it is very easy to create the database. We saw that how to create database by using command and GUI. We also saw how to create table by using this GUI and the command. All right. So concentrate more on the tables because it is so easy for creating tables. Create table name and put that brackets, and inside that specify all the fields and then specify the data type. And in the coming sessions, I'll be explaining about the constraints. So today we saw this null, not null. Similarly, we have this primary key, referential keys. There are so many other things. Slowly we'll understand. But um, apart from that, there are some comments also. If you have the data, how actually we can write the queries. So tomorrow, I'll tell you how we can start writing the queries, that is select commands, insert commands, update commands, and delete commands. Okay. Right. So before we end the session, I want all of you to take 1 minute and tell me how was today's session. Quickly, I want all of you to mention how was today's session, and then I'll take your questions. Quickly. Good. Right. So thank you, people. So I can see that, most of the people are actually new to this database concepts and also for this SQL server. I'll tell you people, um, the entire database or say the entire SQL language is very, very simple. Okay. You attend all the sessions, you'll come to know how easy it is. Okay. All right. So let me take the questions quickly. There is a question called as DBO. Yes, it is database object. It is database object. Can you show me once again the database creation? Kiran, it's very easy. Let me just show you. Database creation is very easy. Where is that? Okay. Just go here, right click on this and say new database. It will ask for the database name, give the database name, and then you can use this. Otherwise, you have the command, show you, just use this create database name, and then run that by selecting this. Say, I'll select the command like this, and then say execute. So that will execute. And then you have to refresh. If you're creating the database by the command, then go and refresh the objects. All right. Okay. Execute. How can I create? Oh, so many questions. Okay. Are the queries case sensitive? No, it is not case sensitive. It can be of any formats. Any formats, no worries. All right. Next. How can I create a drop-down list in the field to select data from another table? For instance, I have nationality field, the employee table, and I want to field to populate the Ahmed, I'm not getting actually what you're telling. So how can I create a drop-down list in the field? Okay, this, okay, understood. So this, when you actually join the table, automatically it will come. This I'll show you when you come to this joins, okay? But we have to relate the tables. What is the shortcut key to execute command? F5. F5 is the shortcut key. So you can go here, you can check that, execute. So here we have this F5. What is the difference between char? So nchar, I told you it is fixed. Nchar means it is number of characters. Varchar means it is variable characters. That is, we can have the characters fixed. If you think that it is fixed, go for nchar. If you are not sure that how many characters, then go for varchar. So same question Mohan Babu is asking. So nchar and varchar. I told you nchar means it's like fixed. Varchar means it is variable. Okay. Right. Right. So right, people. So I'll end the session now. Tomorrow we'll see how we can write select command. Okay, various types by using this SQL commands, by using this SQL commands, how to extract the data and things like that. And also we'll see how we can import the data to our database. So first what we'll do is we'll try to import the data, and then we'll see how we can actually try to, write the commands for extracting the data. Okay, all right. So thank you so much, all of you. Have a great day. See you guys tomorrow with SQL commands, that is select commands. Have a great day, all of you. Bye-bye.